Hare Krishna. Please accept my obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm happy to be again with you to discuss the Canto 5, Chapter 7 and following. That I understand that you have discussed with Sarvabhauma Prabhu the previous chapters of King Rishabhadev, very important chapters of the Bhagavatam. So let's start with chapter 7, the activities of King Bharat.
Recording in progress.
Chakshur unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Desatarine. Srila Prabhupada ki. So Parasara Muni, he describes the Bhagavan as someone who has 6 opulences in an unlimited way. King Rishabhadev was a Sakti of his avatar of the Lord. So which of these opulences, which of these 6 opulences in particular did King Rishabhadev show? Can someone tell me that?
Renunciation.
Renunciation, yes, Vairagya. And and Srila Prabhupada made an interesting point, and this was in a lecture of the 6th verse of this chapter. When Lord Krishna came, he had 16,000 palaces and 16,000 wives, so much opulence. But the same Krishna as Rishabhadev, he was lying in the street. How renounced he was as Lord Rishabhadev. Srila Prabhupada said that we do not need to renounce as Lord Rishabhadev, but there is something we should do, which is to regulate our sleeping, regulate our mating and defending, sleep as little as possible and try to conquer the mind. A difficult task. This is Vairagya Vidhi. This Vairagya Vidhi represents the teaching of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if we go back to the previous chapter, there, text 16. 16 in the purport so here Prabhupada says, as a matter of principle, devotees should read, speak and hear Srimad Bhagavatam persistently, 24 hours a day if possible. So we should be persistent in our daily reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We should not give up that. And further, so this is the recommendation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kirtanya Sada Hari. One should either chant the Hare Krishna mantra or read Srimad Bhagavatam and thereby try to understand the characteristics and instructions of the Supreme Lord, who appeared as Lord Rishabhadev, Lord Kapila, and Lord Krishna. In this way, one can become fully aware of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, one who knows the transcendental nature of the Lord's birth and activities attains liberation from material bondage and return to Godhead. Then a little recap of this chapter. Essentials, text 18, that there it said, yes. So this verse 18, that I read the verse again. My dear King, the Supreme Person Mukunda is actually the maintainer of all the members of the Pandavas, the Yadu dynasties. He is your spiritual master, worshipable deity, friend, and the director of your activities. To say nothing of this, he sometimes serves your family as a messenger or servant. This means he works just as ordinary servants do. Those engaged in getting the Lord's favor attain liberation from the Lord, render direct service unto him. So this verse is also quoted in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Srila Prabhupada elaborates on that. Also in this verse is quoted in Nectar of Devotion in relation with one of the qualities of pure devotional service. In relation to the qualities Sudurlabha. 1135 Nectar of Devotion. Two reasons why devotional perfection is difficult to attain. First, Krishna does not give easily pure devotional service. 2. Unless you are attached to Krishna, even if you are rendering devotional service for a long time. So one must be attached to Krishna. So these are two reasons why devotional service is very rare. And from another verse from Nectar of Devotion, devotional service is so rare that even by performing hundreds of thousands of sacrifices, one cannot attain it. And then we have text 19, the last verse we discussed last time. That I read the verse because this verse is like a summary. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishabhadev, was fully aware of his fully aware of his true identity. Therefore he was self-sufficient, and he did not desire external gratification. There was no need for him to aspire for success, since he was complete in it himself. Those who are unnecessarily engaged in bodily conceptions and create an atmosphere of materialism are always ignorant of their real self-interest. Out of his causeless mercy, Lord Rishabhadev taught the self's real identity and the goal of life. We therefore offer our respectful obeisance to the Lord, who appeared as Lord Rishabhadev. So this verse is a summary. It shows how the Lord is complete, but he acted just to teach the yogis how to give up the body and perform the activities of the soul. Now we will go into the 7th chapter, the activities of King Bharat. We will hear about Bharat Maharaj from chapter 7 to 14. That I first will read the first 4 verses. So, Sukadev Goswami continued, speaking to Maharaj Pariksit. My dear king, Bharat Maharaj was a topmost devotee. Following the orders of his father, who had already decided to install him on the throne, he began to rule the earth accordingly. When Bharat Maharaj ruled the entire Lopi, followed the order of his father, and married Pansajani, the daughter of Vishvarupa. Just as the false ego creates the subtle sense objects, Maharaj Bharat created 5 sons in the womb of Pansajani, his wife. These sons were named Sumati, Rastabrita, Sudarshan, Avarana, and Drumraketu. 3. Formerly this planet was known as Ajanabvarsh, but since Maharaj Bharat reign it has become known as Bharatvarsha. 4. Maharaj Bharat was very learned and an experienced king on this earth. He perfectly ruled the citizens, being himself engaged in his own respective duties. Maharaj Bharat was as affectionate to the citizens as his father and grandfather had been. Keeping them engaged in their occupational duties, he ruled the earth. So Bharat Maharaj, it's mentioned here, Bharat Maharaj ruled on the order of his father. Another quality here, he was affectionate to the citizens. He kept them engaged in their duties of varnashram. That's the duty of a Vedic king. So at the end of the purport, one must walk as a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Sudra on the material path, and on the spiritual path as a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha or Sannyas. Although formerly the government was a monarchy, all the kings were affectionate toward the citizens, and they strictly kept them engaged in their respective duties. Therefore society was very smoothly conducted. So Prabhupada makes the point here. People are happy when they have something to do. Srila Prabhupada mentioned, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. It is the duty of the king to give the people something to do. So, in fact, it was the Varnashram system, as we heard in the first Canto, 2nd chapter. The purpose is Haritoshnam, to supreme the Supreme Lord. Factually, it was the duty's king to engage everyone constantly in devotional service through doing their duty. So it's the duty of the king to give some people something to do. Lord Ram also ruled in the same way. So we will hear about Lord Ram in the 9th Canto, chapter 10. There 9, 10, 50, we find a very similar verse to the rule of Bharat Maharaj. So being pleased by the full surrender and submission of Lord Bharat, Lord Ramachandra then accepted the throne of the state. He cared for the citizens exactly like a father, and the citizens, being fully engaged in their occupational duties of Varna and Ashram, accepted him as their father. Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the relationship between the citizens and the government. So the king should be like a father, very affectionately. The son should be well trained. If they are well trained, they are obedient. He should take care of the citizens just like his own children. We will see how affectionate he is for the citizens, even more than his own family. Lord Ram banished Sita for the sake of the citizens. Which government official would do that? Question mark. So this for the criticism of an insignificant person. Lord, because that was this washerman who criticized him. So Lord Ram was like that. As a king he showed the example and he established Varnashram Dharma. In the third canto, Srila Prabhupada mentions 4 qualities of the 4 ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. I see my internet connection is unstable. If you don't hear me properly, let me know. So Prabhupada mentions the 4 qualities of the 4 ashrams: Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. And these 4 qualities are the pillars of religious life. They are supposed to uphold these 4 pillars of religious life. Brahmacharis are supposed to uphold the pillar of cleanliness, saucham. The Grihastha ashram, dhanam, giving in charity. The Vanaprastha, austerity, tapasya. And the sannyas, truthfulness, satyam. We see also in the Bhagavad Gita the qualities of a brahmacharis is svadhyaya, study of Vedic literature. Now we will read verse 5. How did Bharat Maharaj perform this duty? We will see a similarity between Bharat Maharaj and King Nabi. So you may remember in previous chapters having heard about King Nabi. So I read the verse 5. With great faith, King Bharat performed various kinds of sacrifice. He performed the sacrifices known as Agnihotra, Darsha, Purnamasa, Chaturmasya, Pasujahya, wherein a horse is sacrificed, and Somajahya, wherein a kind of beverage is offered. Sometimes these sacrifices were performed completely, and sometimes partially. In any case, in all the sacrifices, the regulations of Chaturhotra were strictly followed. In this way, Bharat Maharaj worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what is the common factor between Bharat Maharaj and Maharaj Nabi? Someone can say?
Fire sacrifices.
Fire
Or the
sacrifice.
yajna.
Yeah. Thank you. So they first is, yes, they performed fire sacrifices. The second common factor is the purpose was to please Lord Vishnu. So the faith of Bharat Maharaj is in the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada will comment on this extensively in its purport. Wherever we hear about demigods and sacrifices, Srila Prabhupada gives us a warning. So we will read a part of the purport that, let's see, just before the quote, here. So it is said, in the present age, animal sacrifices are forbidden, as stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ashvamedam kavalambam Sanyasam palapaitikam Devarena sutotpatim Kalapansa vivarchet. In this age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden. The offering of a horse in sacrifice, offering of a cow in sacrifice, acceptance of the order of sannyas, and the offering of oblations of flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. So why are these 5 sacrifices forbidden in Kali Yuga? Can someone tell me why are these 5 sacrifices forbidden in Kali Yuga?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, yes.
It could be different reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is that Kali Yuga is not the age for like yajna. In any case, the yajna for the age is the chanting of the holy name, the Maha Mantra. So that's the Yuga Dharma. The second one probably because in this age I don't think there are any qualified Brahmins capable of performing this kind of yajnas.
Mm. Yeah, that's also a reason. Any other reasons?
Pure material is also not available, which is used to conduct fire sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah, I've a number of reasons here, and you mentioned them. But the first reason is that people will take advantage. That because we have the people started to misuse the Vedas, and because the Vedas recommends in certain sections animal sacrifices, and they use that just as an excuse to eat meat. And because people are taking advantage of the Vedas in a wrong way, Buddha had to appear, and he came to stop the sacrifices. He rejected the Vedas. And he said, you just follow these principles of our ahimsa, 8 noble principles, that by that they will stop sinful life. But he rejected the Vedas, and later Sankaracharya had to come and re-establish the Vedas, but in an impersonal way. And then Madhvacharya, he re-established the difference between the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that as being different. And then finally Lord Chaitanya presented the real philosophy, how we are different and one with the Supreme Lord at the same time. So people were taking advantage of this. The second reason is there is a scarcity of expert Brahmins. It's if I remember correctly, this quote here from Adya Lila 17:164. This verse is coming from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, from a section that deals with Karma Kanda. That in Karma Kanda there is no knowledge of the soul. But this Karma Kanda is used also to take sannyas, but without knowledge of the soul. So that karma sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga, but Vaishnava sannyas is different. That is, Vaishnava sannyas is in knowledge.
Maharaj, could you elaborate on this karma kanda sannyas that you just mentioned?
Okay. Moment, because somewhere a nice paper of it. So let's see if I find it. So this is from a lecture, because Bhaktivaibhava Maharaj gave some lecture on it. And he said the question may arise why ISKCON is offering its initiated members the possibility to enter the sannyas ashram, as Shastra states that sannyas in Kali Yuga is forbidden. The below post article is a response to this question. It's not long, but here a deeper understanding of the significance of sannyas in Kali Yuga. Below is an excerpt from a lecture given by Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj to the sannyas candidates in the sannyas candidate training seminar that was in 2012. And he quoted this verse from Adi Lila 17:164. Asvameda kalalamba sannyasam palapaitakam devarena sutotpatim kalapaksha vivarchet. In this age of Kali, 5 things should be avoided. One is performing sacrifice by offering cows, performing sacrifice by offering horse, and oblation offering to the forefathers with meat, and then to get a child by the husband's younger brother. Maybe it was practically formally. According to Vedic rituals, the husband's wife, that is permanent relation, there is no divorce, nothing of that sort. But in case of the husband being sick or dead, the woman was allowed, if she has no children, to get children by the husband's younger brother, the younger brother. That is also Devarena, that is also not allowed. So these 5 things are not allowed in this age. Kali Yuga, sacrificing, offering cows, sacrifice, offering horses, sannyas, renouncing family life, oblations with meat to the forefathers, and getting children to the husband's younger brother. Yeah. These items are forbidden. If you consider the matter carefully, then you can see that there is something more to be considered. We see that in both the Vaishnava and Mayavadi sannyas sampradayas, sannyas was taken. Sankaracharya, for example, took sannyas. Many other sannyasis of the Mayavadi school also. Furthermore, the acharyas of the 4 principal Vaishnava sampradayas also took sannyas, like Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya, and more. In our own sampradaya too, we came across sannyasis like Prabodhananda Saraswati, Madhavendra Puri, and Ishvara Puri. When Mahaprabhu was in his Parganda stage, the age from 5 to 10, his brother Vishvarup took sannyas. At that time, Mahaprabhu was known only as Nimai. In the Chaitanya Lila Adi Lila, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj describes that Jagannath Mishra and Sachideva were filled with grief when Vishvarupa had taken sannyas. However, Nimai pacified them. He said, "What happened is good. Vishvarupa has taken sannyas. Now Vishvarupa has delivered his ancestors from both sides." After some years, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself took sannyas. Following in his footsteps, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also took sannyas and initiated many of his disciples into the renounced order of life. On one hand, we have a Shastri quote that appears to say that sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga. And on the other, we have the practical examples of so many acharyas in all sampradayas, including that of Mahaprabhu himself, of taking up sannyas. So how does one reconcile this? In the purport of the verse, Adi 15:14, Srila Prabhupada writes, It is sometimes said that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disapproved of the acceptance of the sannyas order in this Kali Yuga, because the Shastra says, Asvamedhalavamba sannyasa palapaitakam devarena sutotpatim kaulasha kaulaparsha vivarchat. In the age of Kali, 5 acts are forbidden: the offering of a horse in sacrifice, the offering of a cow in sacrifice, the acceptance of the order of sannyas, the offering of oblations to flesh to the forefathers, and a man's begetting children in his brother's wife. This from the Bhaktivaibhava Purana, Krishna Jamna Kanda 885 till 100, verse 180. So that's the correct, or the original, that's the original source of this verse. So nevertheless, we see that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself accepted sannyas and approved the sannyas of his elder brother, Vishvarup. It is clearly said here, Bala Haila, Vishvarup sannyas, Karila Pitu Kula Matakula Dui Udarila. Therefore, should it be thought that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made statements that are contradictory? No, actually he did not. It is recommended that one accepts sannyas to dedicate his life for the service of the Lord, and everyone must take that kind of sannyas. For by accepting such sannyas, one renders the best service to both his paternal and maternal families. But one should not accept sannyas, the sannyas order of the Mayavadi school, which has practically no meaning. We find Mayavadi sannyas simply loitering in the street thinking themselves Brahman or Narayan, and spending all day and night begging so that they can fill their hungry bellies. Mayavadi sannyasis have become so degraded that there is a section of them that eat everything, just like dogs and hogs. It is such degraded sannyas that is prohibited in this age. Actually, Srila Shankaracharya's principles for accepting sannyas were very strict, but later the so-called Mayavadi sannyas became degraded because of their false philosophy, which propounds that by accepting sannyas one becomes Narayan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected that kind of sannyas. But the acceptance of sannyas is one of the items of varnashram. How can it be rejected? The Srila Prabhupada explains, sannyas is part of the varnashram dharma, is one of the 4 ashrams. So how can you say that sannyas cannot be there in Kali Yuga? There is no injunction that varnashram should be rejected in Kali Yuga. Mahaprabhu himself took it. So Srila Prabhupada gives another reason. We can understand that the prohibition of this verse in the Bhaktivaibhava Purana is especially meant for certain classes of people. It is meant for those Mayavadi sannyas who live some form of degraded lives. Prabhupada says they loiter in the street to fill their bellies, and they eat many times substances that a sannyasi should not be eating. Shankaracharya was very staunch. He set very high standards of conduct for sannyasis, but many of his followers down the generations became loose. Srila Prabhupada says in his purport, such degraded sannyas wherein a Mayavadi thinks that by accepting sannyas he becomes Narayan is prohibited. Even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vihe Dandagane Matrena Naro Narayano Bhavat, simply by accepting the order of sannyas one is immediately transformed into Narayan. Srila Prabhupada says that people who practice these principles, this principle or this philosophy, have a degraded conception, and therefore such sannyas is forbidden. So Prabhupada gives more reason we come gradually to this karma sannyas, or this, yeah. The third reason Srila Prabhupada gives in other parts of the teachings are in this age most people are Sudras by qualification and by quality, and therefore they are unable to follow the rules and regulations. So how can they take sannyas? But if there are some people who didn't by their Krishna consciousness can follow the rules and regulations, then there is no harm in taking sannyas. Fourth, another reason is that Srila Prabhupada mentions elsewhere, in this Kali Yuga in which the age of hypocrisy and cheating, many charlatans will pose as exalted saints and swamis and sannyasis and fool the public for the profit of adoration, distinction, name, fame, prestige, for material facilities, money and so on. Obviously, such sannyas is forbidden. If we take a closer look at what our previous acharyas said, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur specifically mentioned that there are three kinds of sannyasis, which he quoted from the Padma Purana. One kind of sannyas is called karma sannyas. Here we have it, karma sannyas. The other is called jnana sannyas, and the third is Veda sannyas. Three kinds of sannyas. Veda sannyas is the Vaishnava sannyas. The Tridanda sannyas, which the Vaishnavas take. Jnana sannyas is sannyas that the impersonalists take. The Vaishnavas have a Tridanda, whereas the impersonalists have one stick, an Ekadanda, because they follow the path of Jnana. Moving on to the karma sannyas, basically reverse that kind of sannyas which one takes within the varnashram when one gets old but without the requisite spiritual knowledge or understanding and without the qualifications required for sannyas. Therefore the jnana and Vedya sannyas are not prohibited, but the karma sannyas, just taken in the varnashram without knowledge, that's forbidden. Also, in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, there are many verses where sannyas appears in different places. However, the type of sannyas mentioned there is this karma sannyas. Actually, in the 5 prohibited items mentioned that appear in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita also are the part of karma kanda, like worshippers of the forefathers, offers to animal sacrifices and so on. That the sannyas that follows the pose of karma kanda is forbidden. Nevertheless, Vaishnava sannyas is not prohibited. This clarification is actually important. So I think this was a deep analysis of this matter of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The point here is, if we just look at one quote isolated and we don't understand from where it comes from, this comes from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. And the Brahma Vaivarta Purana, that section where this is mentioned is about karma kanda. And in relation to karma kanda, sannyas is prohibited in Kali Yuga, because it's sannyas without knowledge of the soul. I hope this clarifies. It's a very important...
Very much, Maharaj. Very nice elaboration. Extensive.
Because I've been secretary for the sannyas ministry for many years, and you get letters that the devotee quotes this verse, and that why does ISKCON give sannyas? And then this verse is quoted, and also that Prabhupada mentioned at a certain time, stop this sannyas, that's enough, I don't give sannyas anymore, that they all become grihastas. He was angry, but But after Prabhupada said that, still he gave 3 more sannyas, under which my spiritual master Bhakti Charma is. So that's interesting. Now we go back to our purport.
I Maharaj, I just Googled Karma Sannyas,
Yeah.
and there are many people, actually, many schools, so called, formed about training in this Karma Sannyas yoga.
Yeah.
This is a thing that's there, looks like, and these people have no qualification. They just take this kind of sannyas to offer results. That's all that is. But interesting. Thank you, Maharaj, for elaborating further.
Yeah, sure. That it requires deeper knowledge of that, not just seeing a quote isolated, but in the context where it is meant for. So in the purport, such sacrifices are impossible in this age due to scarcity of expert Brahmins or Ritvija who are able to take the responsibility. In absence of these, the Sankirtan Jagya is recommended. Jagyai Sankirtana Prayer Yanti Sumedasa. After all sacrifices are executed, to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jagyartha Karma, such activities should be carried out for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. In this age of Kali, the Supreme Lord, in his incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, should be worshipped with his associates by performance of Sankirtan Jagya, the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. This process is accepted by intelligent men. Jachnai Sarkirtana Payayanti Sumedasa. The word Sumedasa refers to intelligent men who possess very good brain substance. So yes, the activities of Bharat Maharaj is doing what he did is not what a devotee normally does. His activities were ritualistic sacrifices. But he was doing his duty. He was organizing Varnashram and engaging everyone. This is what a king is supposed to do. So he had a very special consciousness, just like his grandfather. He was affectionate to the citizens, and he was only thinking of Krishna. At the same time, he was doing all these sacrifices. I will now read from Bhaktisiddhanta's final instructions before he left this world. Interesting is that he makes the same point that Srila Prabhupada made in the purport about Harinam Sankirtan is the only way to please the Lord in this age. Just remember that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj is ready to leave his body. These are his final instructions to his disciples. And this is just a part of it. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. This body is like the aging cow, which in ancient times was meant to be offered in sacrifice. So that was his mood when he was leaving his body. Only we desire to offer the body in the sacrifice to the holy name, established by Krishna Chaitanya and his associates. We do not seek to become heroes performing great works or religious deeds. So our true being and our identity is that of a speck of dust at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, life after life. The stream which flows from Bhaktivinoda Thakur will never be dammed up. Remember this, and now to double your efforts to fulfill Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire. Amongst you are very capable and worthy individuals. We seek nothing for ourselves. Our only motto is to take grass between my teeth and pray repeatedly that I may become a speck of dust at Sri Rupa Goswami's lotus feet above after above. So that was his mood, and he was going to sacrifice his body in the sacrifice of Harinam. So this is the only sacrifice we can do in this age. Now we are reading about sacrifice, and Srila Prabhupada will always bring it back to Harinam Jagya. King Bharat is doing his sacrifices, but this is our sacrifice. Now let's hear in what consciousness Bharat performed these sacrifices. Text 6. After performing the preliminaries of various sacrifices, Maharaj Bharat offered results in the name of religion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva. In other words, he performed all the jagyas for the satisfaction of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. Maharaj Bharat taught that since the demigods were different parts of Vasudeva's body, he controls those who are explained in the Vedic mantras. By thinking in this way, Maharaj Bharat was freed from all material contaminations such as attachment, lust and greed. When the priests were about to offer the sacrificial ingredients into the fire, Maharaj Bharat expertly understood how the offering made to different demigods was simply an offering to the different limbs of the Lord. For instance, Indra is the arm of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Surya, the sun, is his eye. Thus Maharaj Bharat considered that the oblations offered to different demigods were actually offered unto the different limbs of Lord Vasudeva. So he was aware that the demigods were the via media to the Lord. So they were reciting these mantras. Om Namo Shivaya Svaha, Indra Svaha. Still he was thinking this is for Krishna. He was thinking that these demigods are like tax collectors and they are taking it to Krishna for me. This was his consciousness. He understood that they are the limbs of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada asked a question in the purport. Since Bharat Maharaj was a great devotee, one may ask why he performed so many sacrifices that are actually meant for karmis. Why did Bharat Maharaj do these sacrifices? We are not supposed to do demigod worship, but to worship Krishna. He was a pure devotee, so why did he do it? The first reason is given in the first sentence of the purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead says that as long as one does not develop the pure devotional service of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Srimad Bhagavatam 7.5.23, hearing and chanting, one must carry out his prescribed duties. Bhagavad Gita 1847 and 335. So engage in one's own occupation. That see also in the chapter 12 verse 8, Krishna says the best thing to do is always think of me. If you cannot do this, follow Bhakti Yoga process, do sadhana. If you cannot do this, work for me, do prescribed duties. In Bhagavad Gita 6.1, Anasrita karma phalam karyam karma karotya. Unattached to the fruits and works as he is obligated. Sasanyasi sayogisha nanirachnir nasakriya is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty. So worshipping the demigods is part of the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. Bharat Maharaj gave the example. He gave the example for the sake of his subjects. How does one do one's varnashram duties for the pleasure of Krishna. So he was giving a perfect example. At the end of the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada gives a nice analogy explaining how Bharat Maharaj was seeing the demigods. If we massage a person's legs, we do not serve the legs, but the person who possesses the legs. All the demigods are different parts of the Lord, and if we offer service to them, we actually serve the Lord himself. Demigod worship is mentioned in the Brahma Samhita, but actually the slokas advocate worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda. When we went to these verses that Mother Narayani, she said, if you are preaching in a country when there is heavy demigod worship, then Brahma Samhita is very nice. They like that. When I was years ago in Malaysia for Visha Kuala Lumpur at that time, there they worship demigods. Then the question always comes up, what with the worship of all my demigods, all my gods? Then I say that Ganesh always holds the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. If you want to make Ganesh happy, then you worship Krishna. And then I quote Brahma Samhita. That was how Mother Narayani was preaching in Malaysia. So the following verse of Brahma Samhita explains how to worship Durga. So in the purport, for instance, worship of the goddess Durga is mentioned in this way in the Brahma Samhita 544. Shrishti stiti pralaya sadana saktireka saiva yasya bhuvanani vidakta Durga ichana rupam api yasya sasistate shagovinnamadi shantamam bhajami. So following the order of Sri Krishna, the goddess Durga creates, maintains and annihilates. Sri Krishna also confirms this statement in Bhagavad Gita. Mayadrakshana prakati chucha checha characharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and is producing all moving and non-moving beings. Bhagavad Gita 9:10. So we should worship the demigods in that spirit. Because the goddess Durga satisfies Krishna, we should therefore offer respects to the goddess Durga. Because Lord Shiva is nothing but Lord Krishna's functional body, we should therefore offer respect to Lord Shiva. Similarly, we should offer respect to Brahma, Agni and Surya. So that is how a devotee worships the demigods, meditating on how the demigods are serving and pleasing Lord Krishna. So in the last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada makes an important point. Kings like Maharaj Ambarish and many other Rajarsis who were pure devotees of the Lord simply passed their time in the service of the Supreme Lord. So when a pure devotee executes some service through the agency of another person, he should not be criticized for his activities. Or for his activities are meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. A devotee may have a priest perform some karma kanda, and the priest may not be a pure Vaishnava, but because the devotee wants to please the Supreme Lord, he should not be criticized. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada is trying to shape our mentality so that we don't have the misconception that we don't worship demigods. We try to get people who worship demigods into devotion and service. The consciousness is the most important factor. So the good thing of people who worship demigods is that they have the personal conception in mind and they accept the authority of the Vedas. But not all the worshippers of demigods were like Bharat Maharaj. There is one man who was worshipping Krishna, but Krishna did not give him his material opulences. So he decided to worship Durga instead. He was offering incense to Durga, but the smoke of the incense was going to Krishna and not to Durga, so he got really upset. So he put cotton in Krishna's nostrils so that Durga would get it. That night Krishna came to him in a dream and said, "I am very pleased with your worship." He replied, "Why are you pleased? Why are you pleased? I stuffed up your nostrils," the man said. So Krishna replied, "At least you think I'm a person." That's interesting. We have a personal relationship. If you go up to the 7th canto, then you understand that any way you relate with Krishna, calm, dvesh, anger, envy, lust, anyway, you relate with you're relating with Krishna is good. Srila Prabhupada said, if you have a relationship with Krishna, even like Sisupal, then it is very good. And he quotes the verse, Abhichat Shuchrajo Bhajanti Mam Ananya Bhak Sadhuev Samanta Vya Samyak Vya Vasitoisa. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be understood saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. So even the demons are considered sadhu by Krishna. These are fallen devotees, and he brings them back. So, yeah, this was most of this purport, and comments on this purport of verse 6, that so it is now nearly 6:30. We will have a pause now of 15 minutes, and 18:45 we will resume to discuss then up from verse 7 to 14. That's factually the end of the chapter. We will see if we get there. So we have a break now of 15 minutes till 6:45. Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hare Krishna. We will resume our study of chapter 7 of the 5th canto, the activities of King Bharat. Text 7 will give us a further clue of what's going on in the mind of Bharat Maharaj. Text 7. In this way, being purified by ritualistic sacrifices, the heart of Maharaj Bharat was completely uncontaminated. His devotional service unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, increased day after day. Lord Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, is the original personality of Godhead, manifest as the supersoul Paramatma as well as the impersonal Brahman. Yogis meditate upon the localized Paramatma situated in the heart. Jnanis worship the impersonal Brahman as the supreme absolute truth. And devotees worship Vasudeva, the supreme personality of Godhead, whose transcendental body is described in the Shastras. His body is decorated with the Srivatsa, the Kaustuba jewel, and the flower garland, and his hands hold a conch shell disc, club and lotus flower. Devotees like Narada always think of him within their heart. So now we understand what is going on in the mind of Bharat Maharaj. Although he's performing all this demigod worship, within he's worshipping Krishna. So that is what we have to learn. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, Paramatma is situated in the hearts of all living beings. He has 4 hands, which hold 4 symbolic weapons, that all devotees would think of the Paramatma within the heart of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the temple deity. They also understand the impersonal feature of the Lord and his bodily array is the Brahman effulgence. So if you worship a deity in the temple, you are worshipping also Paramatma in the heart. In an early edition of Bhagavad Gita, you have a picture with at one side the yogi doing meditation on Paramatma and at the other side the devotee doing puja to the deities. We learned that also in the 3rd Canto. In Lord Kapila is mentioning in his teachings the purpose of deity worship. So Adi Lila, chapter 1, verse 7. There is a verse that describes these different concepts of the Absolute Truth. And so, Yat Advaitam Pramopanisadi Tatapasya Tanubha Ya Atmantach Yamepusha Iti So Shamsa Vibhava Satavaishya Puso Yaya Parvan Svayam Na Chaitanya Krishna Jat Paratatvam Param Iha. What the Upanishad describes as the impersonal Brahman is but the effulgence of his body. And the Lord known as the Supersoul is but his localized plenary portion. Lord Chaitanya is the personality of Godhead, Krishna himself full with 6 opulences. He is the absolute truth, and no other truth is greater than or equal to him. So only in the Vaishnava theology do we have the complete picture of the absolute truth. Others have a partial or a distorted picture. The Jnanis see Brahman, and the Yogis Paramatma. But the complete picture means Bhagavan, who is the source of Paramatma and Brahman. If we speak to them about the personal form of the Lord, they say that it's either Maya or mythology. The Jains say this is mythology, the form of God. So there are the verses on the 3 features of the Absolute Truth in Srimad Bhagavatam 1-11. Vadanti tattvatvam tattvam jnanam atvam pramiti paramatmiti bhagavan iti sapyate. Learned transcendentalists will know that the Absolute Truth, called this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan. So Sutta Goswami instructs the sages here of Namisaranya. There is another verse in this regard in chapter 12, verse 11, that the 1st canto. Jnanam Vishuddham Paramahtamekam Anantaram Tva Bahir Brahma Satyam Patyak Prashantam Bhagavat Shabda Samyam Yadva Sudevam Kavayo Vadanti. What then is the Absolute Truth? The answer is that non-dual knowledge is the Absolute Truth. This is devoid of contamination of material qualities. It gives us liberation. It is one without a second, all-pervading and beyond imagination. The first realization of that knowledge is Brahman, then Paramatma, then the Supersoul is realized by the yogis, who try to see him without grievance. This is the second stage of realization. Finally, full realization of the same supreme knowledge is realized in the Supreme Person. All learned scholars describe the Supreme Person as Vasudeva, the cause of Brahman, Paramatma and others. These are the realizations of Bharat Maharaj during his worship. So now we hear about Bharat's life, verse 8. Destiny fixed the time for Maharaj Bharat's enjoyment of material opulence at 1,000 times 10,000 years. When that period was finished, he retired from family life and divided the wealth he had received from his forefathers among his sons. He left his paternal home, the reservoir of all opulence, and started for Pula Ashram, which is situated in Hardwar. The Saligam Shilas are obtainable there. So this Pula Ashram is factually in Nepal. Hardwar is the gateway in the Himalayas. Text 9. At Pula Ashram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari, out of transcendental affection for his devotees, becomes visible to his devotees, satisfying his devotees' desires. Read the purport. That, so the Lord, maybe someone can read it, it's on the screen, the purport of 9.
Hare Krishna.
Please.
Can I read?
Thank you.
The Lord always exists in different transcendental forms, as stated in Brahma Samhita 5.39. Ramadimurtishu kala niyamena testa nanavataram akarot bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samabhavat paramapumanyo govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Lord is situated as Himself, Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and He is accompanied by His expansions like Lord Rama, Baladeva, Sankarshana, Narayana, Mahavishnu, and so forth. The devotees worship all these forms according to their liking, and the Lord, out of His affection, presents Himself as Archavita. He sometimes presents Himself personally before the devotee out of reciprocation or affection. A devotee is always fully surrendered to the loving service of the Lord, and the Lord is visible to the devotee according to the devotee's desires. He may be present in the form of Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, Lord Narasimhadeva, and so on. Such is the exchange of love between the Lord and His devotees. Thank you.
Thank you. When we will hear the description of the universe, we will hear about Jambudvip. There are 9 different verses. That when we will read the prayers of the residents of Jambudvip, we will hear about people worshipping different incarnations of the Lord. Like Bhumi Vedi is worshipping Vara, Vaishvata Muni is worshipping Matsya, Hanuman is worshipping Lord Ram. But the interesting thing about the worship is that they are all worshipping the Arshavihara deities. There is one purport where Srila Prabhupada says, in this world they worship the Arshavihara. The Lord is personally present in his Arshavihara form. Text 10. In Pula Ashram is the Gandaki river, which is the best of all rivers. The Salagram, Shila, the marble pebbles, purify all those places. On each and every marble pebble, up and down circles like navels are visible. 11. In the caves of Pula Ashram, Maharaj Bharat lived alone and collected a variety of flowers, twigs, and tulsi leaves. He also collected the water of the Gandaki river, as well as various roots, fruits, and bulbs. With these, he offered food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, and worshipping him, he remained satisfied. In this way, his heart was completely uncontaminated, and he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. All material desires vanished. In his steady position, he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. So very nice realization. The first thing Srila Prabhupada says in the purport is everyone is searching after peace of mind. Here we are reading about someone who got peace of mind. He was offering roots, fruits, and bulbs. It must be this which he was eating, and he was satisfied. So how to be satisfied, Srila Prabhupada writes, it is obtainable only when one is completely free from the desire for material sense gratification and is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. These two things, free from desire for sense gratification and engaged in service to the Lord. The main thing is love and devotion. As long as one maintains material desires, he cannot be happy. As soon as one engages in devotional service, his mind is purified of all material desires. Then he becomes fully satisfied. Srila Prabhupada gives this verse then. Savaipum saparodano yato bhakti adoksha ahait kapatira yatma shupashidati vasdeva bhagavati bhakti yoga prayochita yanyasya sivarhyam jnana sayat ahaitukam. The supreme occupation of all humanity is that by which one can attain to loving devotional service in the transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. By rendering devotional service to Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So if you really want to be satisfied, then what are the two characteristics of devotional service that must be there to actually gain this peace of mind? Your service must be unmotivated and non-stop 24 hours. We must try to come to this point of hearing and reading Srimad Bhagavatam 24 hours. In the last paragraph, these are the instructions given in Srimad Bhagavatam, the supreme Vedic literature. One may not be able to go to Pulaha Ashram, but wherever one is, one can happily render devotional service to the Lord by adopting the process mentioned above. Srila Prabhupada says that we can have peace if we just accept the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the first canto, Srila Prabhupada speaks about the solution of all problems, is Srimad Bhagavatam. So what is the greatest need of human society, Srila Prabhupada writes? What is lacking, what is missing in modern day society that Srimad Bhagavatam can give? Some of you have the answer. What does the Srimad Bhagavatam offer that modern society is missing? You remember anything of the first canto in this regard?
Offers the pastimes of the Lord Maharaj that are, the glories of the Lord and the way of thinking about the Lord, way to serve the Lord. These are things that are not existent in modern society at all. And solution, how to become free from contamination, become free from birth and death.
hearing and absorption in the pastimes
Yeah.
of the Lord. That, but why is that? A cause of peace. That why is that effective? There is a verse.
Devotional service. It brings to devotional service.
Yeah, it brings one to devotional service. But there's a verse in the fourth canto that we had which explains that. 4:31:14 Yatato mulan nisheshanena tripyanti yatatskanda puya pasaka pranoparakshayatan lyanam tateva savarnam ashutseya. As pouring water on the root of a tree energizes the trunk, branches, twigs, and everything else, and as supplying food to the stomach and life is the sense and limbs of the body, simply worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service automatically satisfies the demigods who are parts of that Personality of Godhead. So Srila Prabhupada says there is spiritual starvation. That's the problem. The soul is starving. We are living in a civilization where they think there is no soul, and that is why there is no peace. Unless they feed the soul, they cannot be happy. Bhagavad Gita 16:23. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Yashastra vidimuchrita varttekamakartna nasitim avapnoti nasukam naparamgatim. And also Bhagavad Gita 2:70 and 2:71 speak about attaining real peace. So in order to be happy, you follow the regulative principles of freedom. Bhagavad Gita 2:64. So these are all reasons mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So, but people, they don't understand this. They don't understand this concept. Bharat Maharaj, he understood it. And he was experiencing great happiness through a very simple worship. Let's go back now to text 12. The most exalted devotee, Maharaj Bharat, in this way engaged constantly in the devotional service of the Lord. Naturally, his love for Vasudeva in Krishna increased more and more and melted his heart. Consequently, he suddenly lost all attachment for regulative duties. The hairs of his body stood on end, and all the ecstatic bodily symptoms were manifested. Tears flowed from his eyes so much so that he could not see anything. Thus he constantly meditated on the reddish lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, his heart, which was like a lake, was filled with the water of ecstatic love. When his mind was immersed in that lake, he even forgot the regulative service to the Lord. So Narayani, she said, when I read this verse, it reminded me of the significance of the fish on Krishna's lotus feet. There's a fish on Krishna's lotus feet. There are 4 different meanings of the fish of Krishna's lotus feet. That interesting hearing them. Okay, one of the meanings exemplified by this verse: the feeling of ecstatic love, the lake in the heart. So I read these 4 meanings so that you can understand what is the significance. So Bharat Maharaj meditated on Krishna's lotus feet, and from that meditation he experienced ecstatic symptoms. First, just as a fish cannot live with water, similarly a surrendered devotee cannot live without directly associating with his lotus feet. An extra meaning. The fish is the symbol of Cupid also. It is Cupid's flag of surrender. If Krishna is there, material desires are finished and Cupid cannot stay. Cupid means material lusty desires. So when Krishna is there, no material desires can stay. Second, it shows all the most cherished and longings that of those who go to Krishna's lotus feet will be fulfilled. The mind is very fickle like a fish. It goes this way and that way. Only after much meditation comes Lord Krishna's feet into the heart. The second meaning. The third meaning. Lord Krishna's lotus feet will come to life in the heart only if the heart has become liquefied by soft, loving emotions. This is applicable to this verse 12. His heart became liquefied and tears were flowing. Krishna's lotus feet will only live in such a heart. This is the relevance of this verse to the mark of the fish on Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna's lotus feet will only come into the heart if the heart is like a lake of prema. In the lake grows a lotus, and Krishna sits on the lotus of the heart. This is described in many verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the great yogis meditate on the lotus, and Krishna is sitting on the lotus of their hearts. So, if the heart becomes like a lotus, then Krishna can sit there. There are 8 bodily transformations, asta, sat, vikar. This is also described in the 4th canto, the 12th chapter. Dhruv Maharaj experienced this. Srila Prabhupada says that when one does deity worship, hearing, chanting, remembering and worshipping deity, then these are the symptoms that will appear. This is nectar of devotion also. The example is the coconut, which becomes completely dry, and then you shake it. Then you can hear how the inner side is coming loose from the shell. If you are completely absorbed in devotional service, you are disconnected from the gross and subtle body. That is Jivan Mukti. Then when you are disconnected from the gross and subtle body, then where are you connected to? Yoga Yukta. So Krishna in the heart. This is the meditation of the devotees and yogis on Krishna in the heart. So Bharat Maharaj was seeing Krishna manifesting in his heart. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 4:11-18 and also Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-63 again describes Asta Satvika Vikar. How the subtle activities of the mind are expressed to the senses. The mind of a person in Krishna consciousness also acts in a similar way. The tongue chants Hare Krishna, the Maha Mantra, the hands are raised in ecstasy, and the legs dance in Krishna consciousness. These symptoms are technically called Ashta Sattvika Vikar, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adya Lila 4999. Sattvika Vikar is transformation of the mental condition in goodness, or sometimes transcendental ecstasy. Text 13. Maharaj Bharat appeared very beautiful. He had a wealth of curly hair on his head, which was wet from bathing 3 times daily. He dressed in a deer skin. He worshipped Lord Narayan, whose body was composed of golden effulgence and recited within the sun. Maharaj Bharat worshipped Lord Narayan by chanting the hymns given in the Rig Veda, and he recited the following verse as the sun rose. So Srila Prabhupada explains that Lord Narayan is the predominating deity within the sun, Hiranmaya, and is worshipped by our Gayatri mantra. I had a look at the book called the Gayatri book by Satyananda Swami. Today I just want to read a small meditation. This is the first Gayatri mantra out of the 7 that we have been given. This is the mantra which Srila Prabhupada quotes in the purport, which Bharat Maharaj was chanting, meditating on Narayan within the sun planet. So meditate on the divine Son of Krishna, which is rising and spreading the light through the lower, middle and higher planetary systems. May that divine light also inspire and enlighten my own small universe, consisting of my body, mind and intellect. So we can study this universe in the 5th canto, macrocosm. The greater universe is called macrocosm. The yogi knows how to connect with the macrocosm. In the 11th canto, it is described how you can do that. Lord Krishna explains to Uddhav how the yogi can become the greatest of the greatest. And all of these involve meditation on the Supreme Lord. Then the yogi can get these mystic powers. When we study the 5th canto, the structure of the universe, we will get more detail about and go deeper in this. How the different chakras of the body correspond with different planetary systems of the universe. Bhur, Bhuva, Sva. There are 7 chakras, and the yogi brings life air up to the different chakras and finally goes out of the universe. That is one way. There are other ways also. This will be discussed further. Now, verse 14, the last verse. This is the meditation of Bharat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated in pure goodness. He illuminates the entire universe and bestows all benedictions upon his devotee. The Lord has created this universe from his own spiritual potency. According to his desire, the Lord entered this universe as the Super Soul, and by virtue of his different potencies, is maintaining all living entities desiring material enjoyment. Let me offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lord, who is the giver of intelligence. So this is his meditation. This verse is similar to the Gayatri. That he was also chanting Gayatri to meditate on the Supreme Lord in Pula Ashram. In the purpose, Srila Prabhupada writes, in the Rig Veda, the predominating deity of the sun is worshipped by this mantra. Deya Sada Svavitri Mandalam Atyavarti Narayana Sarasya Sana Sannivishta. Narayan sits on his lotus flower within the sun. By reciting this mantra, every living entity should take shelter of Narayan just as the sun rises. According to modern scientists, the material world rests on the sun's effulgence. Due to the sunshine, that all planets are rotating and vegetables are growing. We also have information that the moonshine helps vegetables and herbs grow. Actually, Narayan within the sun is maintaining the entire universe. Therefore, Narayan should be worshipped by the Gayatri mantra or the Rig mantra. Srila Prabhupada is painting out the similarity between what the Vedas say and what the scientists say. But we say that it is not just the sun, but Narayan within the sun. So we go a step further. They see the external, but we see the internal. What is going on? Actually, the one who maintains this universe is Surya Narayan, but there is a similarity on the external side. Farmers know the relationship between the moon and growing vegetables. The farmer's almanac will tell all these things. When to plant and get benefit of the moon. We have this information. The moonshine helps the vegetables and herbs grow. Actually, there's a person behind everything in the universe. They see only the external, not the person. That is how they make their judgment. There is a person behind it who is maintaining that all controlling deities in the universe are expansions of Aniruddha. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:24-36. So I will get this verse on the screen. 4:24-36. Namo nama nirudaya rishikeshandriyatmane nama paramamsaya purnaya nipritatmane. My Lord, as the supreme directing deity known as Aniruddha, you are the master of the senses and the mind. I therefore offer my obeisance unto you again and again. You are known as Ananta as well as Sankarshan because of your ability to destroy the whole creation by the blazing fire of your mouth. So in the purport, it is also indicated in this verse that Lord Aniruddha is the sun god by virtue of his expansions. Since the predominating deity of the sun is an expansion of Lord Aniruddha, Lord Shiva also prays to the sun god in this verse. That's Lord Krishna, by his quadruple expansion, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, is the Lord of physic action, namely thinking, feeling, willing and acting. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha as the sun god, who is a controlling deity of the external material elements which constitute the construction of the material body. In the Sanskrit there are three terms here which describe the sun god. Nibritatmane. He always maintains the various planets by manipulating the rainfall. The sun god evaporates water from the seas and oceans and forms the water into clouds and distributes it over land. When there is sufficient rainfall, grains are produced, and these maintain the living entities in each and every planet. And then the second word is Purna, or complete, because the rays emanating from the sun have no ends. For millions and millions of years since the creation of this universe, the sun god has been supplying heat and light without diminution. And then there is a third word, that Paramamsa. The word Paramamsa is applied to persons who are completely cleansed. When there is sufficient sunshine, the mind remains clear and transparent. In other words, the sun god helps the mind of the living entity to become situated on the platform of Paramamsa. Thus Lord Shiva prays to Aniruddha to be kind upon him, so that his mind will always be in perfect state of cleanliness and will be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Just as fire sterilizes all unclean things, the sun god also keeps everything sterilized, especially dirty things within the mind, thus enabling one to attain elevation to the platform of spiritual understanding. When there is no sun, Srila Prabhupada said it's hell. London is hell, always cloudy, he said. So it gives us an understanding of whom Bharat Maharaj is worshipping. So this was the section today, chapter 7, about Bharat Maharaj, about his activities, his retiring to Pula Ashram, how he did his sacrifice and meditated on the Supreme Lord, that sacrifices via the demigods. So any questions, comments?
It's amazing to see that But this will come later though. But the Maharaj was so spiritually advanced. Still, he got attracted to this deer, and of course, there would be a higher purpose behind it.
Yeah, that he was very advanced, but he came in the Kshatriya mood, protecting this deer. That so he had a lesson to learn. We will hear that tomorrow and the day after and the days after. That but interesting is that Krishna takes care of his devotees. He gives them a situation they need to learn. And we will hear about that. But we have also to learn from it that deviating from our sadhana and becoming attached again to things is very dangerous. That's our lesson to learn. Thank you, Ajapam. Advaita Krishna, please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the previous, just going back to the previous class, before the break, when we were talking about Bharat Maharaj, despite being a pure devotee, was indirectly worshipping the demigods. And I was relating it to the first canto, also where Yudhishthir Maharaj, in a purport, Prabhupada says that the king encourages all his subjects to engage in karma yoga. Now, is it because of varnashram, which means they're attracted to different gunas, or they're controlled by different gunas, so it is appropriate for them to just allow them to worship the demigods, because that's where their eligibility lies, rather than even if the king is a pure devotee, he will abstain from pushing pure devotional service on everyone because they may not be eligible. As a matter of policy, does the king actually promotes karma yoga in general?
Yeah. That the duty of a king is to engage everyone in his duties in his duties according to its psychophysical nature, that according to his social order, that with the purpose to worship the Supreme Lord. That of course in the kingdom of Maharaj Yudhishthira not everyone was a devotee, that and therefore Krishna explains also these different levels of karma yoga. Karmanevadakarastima Fleshkadachana. That's the lowest level. That you do it, you do your duty and don't be attached. That's for Krishna. That then, yeah, Shakhnachta Karmanuyatvalokram Karmabandha is a higher level. Is a higher level in which the sacrifice, the activity is done to give the result to Krishna. The result is for Krishna. And higher is Yat Karosi Yatasnasi Yat Yos Dadas Yat Tapasyas Kaudi Yat Kushma Vadakmanam. When does the activity itself for Krishna? That and a higher level is Patram Push for Phalamtyam Yomi Bhaktya Paraparachati. You offer Krishna everything out of love. Then karma yoga becomes bhakti yoga. So the duty of a king is to engage them so that they can gradually come to that level. Not everyone will come to that level, but at least their lowest level. That is what they should do, doing their duty without being attached to the results. And that may also include demigod worship. That, but the final purpose of demigod worship has to be done in the right mindset, understanding they are limbs of Krishna. And we find that also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Rukmini was worshipping Durga before her marriage to Krishna, to get Krishna as her husband. The gopis were worshipping Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. So some devotees are worshipping Ganesh to take away the obstacles in their devotional service, but it's always directed to Krishna. But anyway, it's the duty of a king to engage everyone according to one's level, and there are different levels, and therefore.
But at least,
Yes.
but at least to the minimum for them, it will be karma kanda. Whereas now, without a spiritually educated king, everyone is just being hedonistic. So at least it will be karma kanda, which means recognizing the Vedic principles and allowing them to understand that nothing is free. You have to give sacrifice to the demigods, minimum, right? That's why Prabhupada was saying he promotes karma yoga and
Yeah,
so on.
because there is the Nivrita Marg and the Pavriti Marg, and they are both Vedic paths. We are following Nivrita Marg, renunciation, by doing everything for Krishna. That's the direct path. Pavriti Marg is the path of karma kanda, and that was allowed. But at least they are religious, they are following the Vedas. That, of course, we have heard in the first canto, Narada says to Vyasadeva, what with, are you only concerned with the mind and the body, but with the soul? That you described all this karma kanda, but the soul is not there. So that's a problem there. But anyway, that was the Vedic system that we hear here. So ideal is that everyone becomes educated by the Brahmins and understand, has knowledge of Krishna in the soul. But in a society you have Sudras who are not interested in that. And for them there is the karma kanda and so on. So that was a Vedic situation. Thank you. Mother Canto.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I'm sorry, I have a short question. It's a little bit out of topic. I wanted to ask, are these introductions to each chapter written by Srila Prabhupada or by editors of the books? I'm sorry.
Are these introductions of the chapter?
Yes, to each chapter we have an introduction in the book, a short summary. Is it written by Prabhupada?
These, as far as I understand, these are the summaries presented by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, which has been taken over. I think it's Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. Yeah. But they are coming from the Guru Parampara, these summaries. It's not made today by ChatGPT or something. No.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Good. Then we continue tomorrow with first hearing about the description of the character of Bharat Maharaj. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Jai Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Hare